Hi, I'm Mr. New Jersey. In this video, we're going to talk about this 2017 state public questions in New Jersey. These are issues that the people of New Jersey get to vote on directly in the 2017 election. State public question number 1 is on the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act. So to start, I'll read straight from the ballot. Do you approve the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act? This bond act authorizes the state to issue bonds in aggregate principal amount of $125 million. The proceeds of the bonds will be used to provide grants to public libraries. The grants will be used to build, equip, and expand public libraries to increase capacity and serve the public. Interpretive statement. Approval of this bond act will allow the state to sell $125 million in state general obligation bonds. Proceeds from the bonds will be used to provide grants to construct, expand, and equip public libraries. Municipalities or counties that fund public libraries will match the grant amount. The municipality or county may solicit private funding to support its match. The state librarian, in consultation with the president of Thomas Edison State University, will set eligibility criteria for the grants. So essentially the idea is, do you want the state to issue $125 million in bonds, which means go $125 million more into debt, to raise money to construct and improve public libraries? Now I'll do my best to summarize the arguments on both sides of the question. Supporters of the Bond Act point out the many benefits of public libraries, such as educating the public, serving as centers for civic engagement and public meeting places, and helping those who would not otherwise be able to afford access to computers or the internet to have access to those things, which is particularly important for people who are working towards degrees or who need to find and apply for jobs. So in essence, they help spread the benefits of the digital age at a time when not having access to the internet basically means you can't be a functioning member of society. So among the things that these bonds would actually be raising money for are making sure that more of our libraries comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act, expanding the libraries, improving the quality of their facilities, and fixing various electrical problems that some of them have. Those in opposition to this ballot question point out that New Jersey is already one of the most indebted states in the nation. They point out that neighboring states spend far less on their libraries than New Jersey does. They point out that the number of people visiting libraries is in decline, and that the digital age means that libraries are less needed than before. A Star Ledger editorial that I read points out that the supporters of this Bond Act have not identified what revenue source they would use to pay off the debt we would be gaining. So fundamentally what this question comes down to is, do you think that the benefits of improving public libraries outweigh the costs of going deeper into debt? I'll put links in the video description to sources on both sides of the debate. The first is the actual report by the legislative committee that dealt with this question. The sides on the committee that support it and oppose it both got to write their own statements. However, the pro side spends most of their time describing the logistics of the act, whereas the con side goes into very great detail about the actual issues surrounding the debt. So the main reason I'm including this document is to give you a sense of the debt side of this equation. I'll also be including the NJ.com editorial that I mentioned, which talks about how those in support of the act have failed to identify their revenue source. NJ.com is the website of the Star Ledger, which is the state's largest newspaper, in case you didn't know. And lastly, to represent the pro side of the argument, I will be including 2 articles by Albert B. Kelly, a guest columnist for NJ.com. I think these articles do a much better job explaining the benefits of public libraries than the pro side of the committee report does, so that's why I'm including them in this discourse. Lastly, I will be including a link to a Pew Research Center survey, which looked at how library use in the U.S. breaks down across various demographics. I think the most relevant thing in it to this discussion is that younger generations use libraries more than older generations. So that could mean one of 2 things, and I don't know which of these is more accurate. The first is that maybe the decline in library use will reverse as time goes on. The other is that maybe young people have always used libraries more, and so it doesn't mean anything different, though we'd need more research to determine whether or not that's the case. Now we'll move on to State Public Question 2, which is actually voting on an amendment to the New Jersey Constitution. For those who don't know, the amendment process for the New Jersey Constitution always ends in the amendment going before voters. And as with last time, I will start by reading directly from the ballot. Constitutional amendment dedicating monies from state environmental contamination cases. Do you approve amending the Constitution to dedicate all monies collected by the state relating to natural resource damages in cases of contamination of the environment? The monies would have to be used to repair, restore, replace, or preserve the state's natural resources. The monies may also be used to pay legal or other costs incurred by the state in pursuing its claims. Interpretive statement. This amendment would dedicate all monies collected by the state relating to natural resource damages through settlements of awards for legal claims based on environmental contamination. These monies would be dedicated to repair, replace, or restore damaged natural resources, or to preserve the state's natural resources. The monies would be spent in an area as close as possible to the geographic area in which the damage occurred. The monies would also be used to pay for the state's legal or other costs in pursuing the claims. Currently, these monies may be used for any state purpose. In other words, if the state successfully sues either a person or corporation for damaging the environment, should all the money that the state wins in that lawsuit automatically be dedicated to cleaning up the environment in the area that got polluted? Some of the money would also simply pay the state's legal fees. And if there's any money left over after all these various expenses, the money would go towards preserving other aspects of the state's environment. The reason this question got on the ballot is that there have been times in recent years where the state has won money suing polluters, but then diverted the money to plug other holes in the budget instead of giving it back to the polluted community to clean that community up. And supporters of the amendment point out that polluted communities often happen to be poor communities, so poor communities suffer disproportionately when the state directs these monies elsewhere. The pro side of the amendment is basically that communities will get the money that they need to clean up their community. But the con side points out that every once in a while, there may be a time when it's simply more important to put money elsewhere, and that the government should have the flexibility to make those calls. The pro side counters this argument by saying that you can't trust Trenton to only divert the money to other places when it really matters, and say that Trenton will abuse the flexibility as they have at times in the past. Some on the con side also hypothesize that if this amendment passes, the state will take this as an opportunity to cut back on other funding that they give to environmental protection, so this won't accomplish anything. I only have one link to provide you with information about this ballot question, and it's to an article from the Press of Atlantic City by Michelle Brunetti. The article itself appears to be neutral on the issue, and it provides the perspectives of both sides. A recent Stockton University poll found 56% support for the New Jersey Library Construction Bond Act and 87% support for the constitutional amendment. So based on the poll, it seems we can expect the Bond Act to pass by a decent margin and the constitutional amendment to pass by a landslide. I hope you found this video useful and informative. If you did, please like and subscribe. This is actually going to be my last video before the election, so I'll see you all on the other side of this thing.